This is the Louie Tee Network.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to Lockdown Coverage, your all-out guide to everything National Football League related, breaking down every single game in the National Football League here in the lab room on the Louie Tee Network. Lockdown Coverage, talking Denver Broncos and Indianapolis Colts, and this is, to me, a solidification that the Broncos are going to be a lot better than I gave them credit for. I can't speak for anybody out there. You may have thought that the defense would be good enough to carry them. And again, I was under the assumption that Dirty Ches was going to be the quarterback starting out this season. I made a bad assumption. And again, you know what happens when you assume, man. You know what happens to you and me. Don't do that. And I did that. I had to pay for that. So it's all good. Broncos get it done. We're going to talk about that. But before we do, welcome to the channel if this is your first time here, and subscribe to the Louie Tee Network for more great content now and into the future in 2016. Remember, I'm breaking out every single game in the National Football League, cover the draft, cover everything, all here. You ain't got to go nowhere else. So make sure you subscribe to the channel Louie Tee Network if you haven't already done so. Also, I'm on Twitter. @InTheLabRoom is the Twitter handle. If you have a comment that you would like to be read at the end of this program, use the hashtag #LouieTLive, and I will read that comment, and we can converse at the end of this episode. Also, if you're in the YouTube discussion chat room on this actual live feed, use the hashtag #LouieTLive if you want your comment read again. So, also, I'm on Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. Give me a thumbs up, like there. Also on Twitter, @InTheLabRoom. Also told you could use the hashtag. Make sure you go ahead and give me a follow while you're already there. Why not? What's the big deal? Go ahead and follow me while you're there as well. So let's jump into the breakdown of this Week 2 matchup. And the Colts always give the Broncos fits, and they did that again in this game. Showed some resiliency. We'll talk about all of those good things in this game. I'm going to break it down the way that I love to do here on this program: likes, dislikes, and any banana in the tailpipes that I may have seen in this football game. And I always start with the road team, so let's do that. Likes for the first half. We're going to start with the Indianapolis Colts, who are on the road in this game, then go to the Broncos, then go to the second or the first half dislikes, and so forth and so forth. Let's start with the Colts and the likes for the first half of this game. And I thought the Colts defense early in this game, and really you could extrapolate that through the whole entire game, but I really thought the defense in that first half was extraordinary. The Broncos moved the football, but they didn't give up the touchdowns that we saw them give up a week ago. Remember, in that first half, the Lions got into the red zone 4 times, got 4 touchdowns last week. It was the direct opposite in this game. They were holding the Broncos to field goals, and that's why this game was close. Remember, last week, they were giving up touchdowns. And the only reason they had a shot in that game was because the offense went out and put up 35 points. If not, they would have been blown out of that football game. And so it was good to see the defense stand up. And it's almost like this Colts defense knew what kind of game this was going to be. And I know they know how to play Denver. This Colts team knows how to play the Denver Broncos. But it's almost like they went in with the mindset of, look, we know offensively we're not going to score a bunch of points against this Denver Broncos defense. So we got to come and play our A game defensively to give us a chance. And they did. I thought they did some good things defensively. And with all the injuries in their secondary, for them to stand up and put forth the defensive effort that they did, I think some credit needs to be given to Chuck Pagano and the defensive staff in Indy and those players for going out and finding a way to bandage together a formidable defense that could go out. And because, look, at the end of the day, they gave up 2 defensive touchdowns in this game. If not for those, you're talking about a totally different ball game. So defense needs to be given some credit in Indianapolis in this football game. Had the sack to force a field goal on that first possession that they ultimately missed. Also had another red zone stop on a 3rd down where they forced them to kick a field goal. Just thought the Colts in the first half, and really, like I said, you could extrapolate this throughout the entire game. And we'll talk about this defense again as we get later on in this breakdown. I think you got to give that Colts defense some credit. You go to the next, like the Darius Butler interception. Talked about this defense and how good they were. Here's a play, and this is a prime example of the hard luck, the tough luck that the Colts have had this year in the secondary. He makes a magnificent play to pick off Trevor Siemian, similar to the interception he threw last week. Ball comes out funny on a quick hitter looking to throw the football on basically a hitch, and the ball slips in Trevor Siemian's hands, and he doesn't have the laces, so he just tries to get rid of it. Darius Butler reads the quarterback's eyes, picks it off. Beautiful play. He's got a pick six. The phone is ringing. There's a house call being made. All he's got to do is pick up the phone. And all of a sudden, his hammy just like that, it goes. And he goes down in a heap. And that was 6 points. I mean, damn. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but it can't be any worse than that if you're the Colts. You make a great play. You got a touchdown waiting on you with your name on. All you got to do is sign for the package, okay? It's already done. It's in the mail. All you got to do is sign for the package, and the hammy goes out. And so he goes down, and ultimately you get a field goal out of that instead of a touchdown. That's tough. Let's go to the lights for the Denver Broncos in the first half. Demaryius Thomas catch and run early in this ball game. You get the football to DT88, and I think he's one of those guys that if you get him going early, he's a much more effective player than, say, one of these other receivers who can go 2 quarters without touching the football and then erupt. He's not one of those guys. If he's quiet early, he's going to be quiet for the most part that entire game. You get him in a rhythm early, and he's a problem to deal with all game long. They got him involved early with the catch and run. And I don't know if there's a team or specifically a player that executes a wide receiver screen any better than Demaryius Thomas. We've seen it for years with Peyton Manning, even with Tim Tebow, go back to the Tebow days, and now with Trevor Siemian. They execute that wide receiver screen to Demaryius Thomas as good as anyone does to a receiver in the entire National Football League. Big catch and run sets up some early points for the Broncos in this ball game. Devontae Booker. Rebounding off of his first NFL carry being a fumble to really having what I thought was a great showing on his part in this football game. Thought he did some really good things running the football in the first half, and I thought he followed it up with some solid carries in the second half as well. He's going to be the number 2 back in Denver, and I think he's a guy that eventually will take over the lion's share of the carries in Denver. But I'm telling you right now, C.J. Anderson not making it easy. He's doing some Yeoman-like work at the running back position, catching it out of the backfield, as well as running it tough in between the tackles and bouncing it outside. So I think there's a lot to be said about that position, but make no mistake about it, Devontae Booker looked much better, as you would expect from a rookie, in week 2 than he did in week number 1. Speaking of C.J. Anderson, he's the next guy up on my likes list in that first half. And really, again, this is a whole game like for me. C.J. Anderson was, to me, just tough. His numbers don't scream at you at the end of the game. Same thing you could say from last Thursday's game versus the Carolina Panthers. His numbers don't scream and grab you and say, look at me. But the performance, the tough yards after contact, catching the football out of the backfield, picking up blitzes on third down. He does all of the little things that can go unnoticed if you're not paying enough attention. And to me, C.J. Anderson right now is the backbone of that offense right now. As he goes, so do this Denver Broncos offense. And he continues to churn out the tough yards, get the job done in between the tackles. Love what C.J. Anderson is doing this season. Thought he had a little bit of a down year last year. He's definitely bouncing back. Had another nice, solid performance in this ball game to me. Broncos D. And I could talk about this defense all episode long. Look, I'm going to drive the point home because I'm one of the ones that always says, look, you have to recognize greatness. I hate when people gloss over greatness because you're so used to it, you become numb and almost jaded by greatness. Don't become jaded by Tom Brady when he's out there displaying excellence. Don't become jaded by Peyton Manning. For all these years, we were we were so used to the fact that Peyton Manning would go out and throw for 330 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Don't be jaded by Drew Brees going out and throwing for 375 yards and 4 touchdowns. Don't be jaded by that. This is greatness. You need to be able to revel in this greatness, acknowledge this greatness, because once it's gone, it's gone. And this Broncos defense is great. And you saw it again in that first half. Andrew Luck had miserable numbers throughout this game. I'll talk about that a little bit later on, but give this Broncos defense some credit. When this game was on the line at the end, we'll talk about the defense again. Don't worry. Don't you worry. Late first half drive by the Broncos is my last thing on there. likes list for the first half, and they got a field goal out of that. They were up 6-10 at the time, moved it down the field, got a field goal right before halftime to extend the lead out to 7. And the reason why this is impactful is because, again, they didn't know this at the time, but the Colts got the football to start the second half, and they would put together a masterpiece of a drive to start the second half that resulted in a touchdown, and it tied the game up at 13. If you don't get that field goal before halftime, they go up 10-13, changes the whole complexity of the game. So getting points before the half to me is huge. Whether you get the football to start the second half or not, you want to go into the locker room with momentum. One-handed catch by C.J. Anderson on 3rd and 5, then eludes a tackler to get the first down. Those are the plays I'm talking about with C.J. Anderson. That's the type of play that you don't talk about, doesn't show up on SportsCenter or one of these highlight packages, but those are the type of plays that extend drives, that lead to points. And that's why C.J. Anderson was on my likes list and has been the first 2 games, because he's been impactful in these games. And that was a huge catch. A one-handed catch behind him, then makes a guy miss, picks up 7 on 3rd and 5 to keep that drive alive, ultimately ending up in a field goal before the half. So let's get to the dislikes for the first half of both teams. Start with the Indianapolis Colts in this game. Rashaan Melvin with the pass interference that ultimately leads to a touchdown for the Denver Broncos. Look, they're struggling in the secondary. They got so many injuries, it's not even funny. I'm not going to beat the Colts up. I've said this since the preseason. When I broke their game down in preseason game number 3 versus the Eagles, I'm not going to beat them up in the secondary. And for them to play the way that they did defensively in this game with all the injuries, you got to give them some credit. I'm not going to sit there and beat them up, but Rashaan Melvin had a pass interference, led to a touchdown in the second half, late in the first half. Cromartie injures his shoulder early in this game. Literally, like the first catch the Broncos had, play action fake, across his leg, bootleg. Trevor Siemian gets it out to the receiver, Emmanuel Sanders, E-Man Sand. He runs right into Cromartie's shoulder. He goes down in the heap, leaves the field. He ends up coming back. That was a good sign because, again, they can't afford too many more injuries. Dante Moncrief goes down with an injury on one of his first catches of the game. I don't know if he even returned to the game. I'm not sure about that. I don't think he did, though. So that's another concern for them. Too many injuries in Indy right now. Butler, I talked about this, gets an interception, but then pulls up lame. I got this actually on my dislikes list because this would have been a touchdown. Instead, it ended up being a field goal because he would have been gone. And not to mention throwing a little bit of salt in those wounds, adding literally injury to insult. He gets injured on the play, and forget about the pick six. He blows out his hammy or injures his hammy. He had to miss the rest of the game to Darius Butler at a position where they were already thin. He leaves this football game with that hamstring injury after picking off a pass and looking to have a clear path to the end zone on a pick six. And the Colts offensive line is the last dislike on my first half list. And really, this is a whole game thing. Look, we're going to be talking about the Colts offensive line all year long. I feel for Andrew Luck. I really do. Because for as good as he is, for as good as the supporting cast around him is, he's not going to be able to maximize what those guys provide for this team because that offensive line stinks. And you saw it again today. He was under duress. And this is what's going to happen. It's not going to be every week because you're not going up against the Denver Broncos pass rush every week. But you're going to see this offensive line struggle. Last week they had their moments when they struggled against the Lions. But I said, look, all in all, it was actually a good performance by the offensive line. Lions don't get a lot of pressure. This Broncos team does. And that's why you saw the end result of the second half, this offense unraveling at times, especially late in the ball game when they needed this offensive line to step up. They just couldn't. And you saw some of that in the first half as well. You saw the leaks coming. And the dam finally broke in the second half. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But you saw the leaks. They kept trying to plug the holes in the dike with their fingers. But at some point, it's just going to explode. And it did in that second half with the game on the line. And also, Rashaan Melvin, I just talked about him getting the pass interference where he left the game with an injury as well. Again, that secondary has been decimated. And it sucks when the football gods spin the wheel of injury of doom and it lands on your team. They spin it again and it lands on one particular position. For the Colts, the injury reaper spun the wheel. It landed on the Colts. He spun it again and landed on the secondary. Damn. That's all I can say is damn. I feel bad for you. I really do. And so hopefully they'll get some warm bodies back out there because right now they're just looking for warm bodies. Damn a name, damn an impact player. We just looking for warm bodies in the secondary for the Indianapolis Colts. If you can run fast and you've played cornerback at the collegiate level at any point in your life, go ahead and sign up, man. They got a list. They might have some tryouts on Tuesday. Go ahead and apply, man. You might just get a job. So let's get to the second half likes or the dislikes, first half dislikes for the Denver Broncos. Brandon McManus missing a field goal early in the ballgame. First possession, Broncos move it down the field. Trevor Siemian gets sacked on third down. Pushes them a little further back than they would have liked. But again, it's mile high. It's Brandon McManus. He's got plenty of leg. You get the altitude at your back. Go ahead and knock it home. He misses. So that was not a good deal for them early in this football game. Demaryius Thomas with a drop pass over his shoulder. Look, that was a tough catch. But when you're Demaryius Thomas, you're a 100-plus catch guy a season. You're one of these guys that's getting broken off pay-wise. Need you to come down with that football. It was a tough catch. I will grant you that, but I expect him to make that kind of play. And the Trevor Siemian interception, I talked about it briefly earlier, but he bobbled the football. This is a quick hitter. You can't have any kind of hiccup. Well, he did. He bobbled the football. Then because of the bobble, he didn't get the laces, so he threw the football without the laces, and Darius Butler able to jump into the backfield and pick it off. Would have been gone for 6 had he not blown out his hammy. So that's a tough deal for Siemian. Second week in a row, he's trying to get rid of the football quickly and has it picked off. Remember, in week 1 against the Panthers, has a quick pass batted in the air and then picked off early in that ball game as well. So let's get to the second half likes for the Indianapolis Colts. Andrew Luck's legs. And I'll go ahead and combine that with the next like for the second half, and that's the opening drive of the second half. 13 plays, roughly 7 minutes of the third quarter clock is engulfed by this drive by the Colts where they needed some help. A couple of penalties by the Broncos. Andrew Luck with a 3rd and 20 gallop for 21 and a first down. Magnificent run by Andrew Luck. And just grinding out that Broncos defense. A lot of runs, a lot of third and manageables where Andrew Luck's able to extend possessions either with his arm or his legs. So, and some penalties, like I said, untimely penalties by the Broncos. All in all, results in a 13-play, 7-minute drive that's capped off by a run on a pitch out to running back Robert Turbin, who then gets into the end zone to knock this game up at 13. And that's why that field goal before the half was so important. They were able to get that touchdown. It ties the game up at 13 in this ball game. Resiliency by this Colts offense is the next like for me. They were down after Andrew Luck throws the interception, the pick 6 to L.A.B. We'll talk about that a little bit later on a couple times. They're down by 10. This game could have been over. You know, the Broncos now know they have to pass. They could have turned the dogs loose. And they could have easily folded up like a lawn chair, and they didn't. They went down the field and found a way to get back into this ball game, did the Indianapolis Colts with a long touchdown march yet again. Frank Gore tiptoeing. What about that effort from Frank Gore? Another ageless wonder at the running back position, much like D'Angelo Williams, talking about him earlier. Frank Gore tiptoeing the sidelines, extending the football to get into the end zone to cut the lead back to 3 at 23-20. Again, resiliency shown by this Colts football team, not giving up in this ball game. That L.A.B. fourth quarter pick 6 could have been deflating, could have been the end for this Colts team in this game. It proved not to be at that moment as the Colts came back within 3 after the Gore touchdown. 3rd and 1 stop. Again, give some credit to this Colts defense for all of the guys that are banged up, for all of the scrutiny they've been under, giving up 39 points last week. You can go ahead and count that safety. That counts too. 39 points given up last week. 4 of 4 in the first half in terms of red zone defense or lack thereof. You give some credit to them going on the road against Denver and finding a way to keep this ball game close. And at the end, when they had to have a stop, down by 3, needing a stop, no more timeouts to preserve this ball game. If they don't get this stop, this game's over. They get a 3rd and 1 stop. First of all, they got to stop on 2nd and 1. Then they got to stop on 3rd and 1 to keep this game close, force the Broncos to kick a field goal, go up 6. Then what transpired? No fault no wrongdoing, no fault of this defense to see this game finally slip through their fingers. But this defense gave this Colts team a chance. That's all you can ask for if you're the Indianapolis Colts. Broncos second half likes. Aqib Talib, pick six, 45 yards, jumps in front of Dorsett, gets into the end zone. Aqib Talib is a machine when it comes to pick sixes and just making plays, having a knack for timely plays for this Broncos football team. We saw him do it last year, did it again here. Big play in the game, gave the Broncos a 10-point lead, a little bit of a cushion and some breathing room. And so that's what this defense does. They strike, they make impactful plays, and it's not just good enough to get the football back to the offense. They do something when they create turnovers, and it was another big turnover forced by this aggressive, nasty, gritty, physical Broncos defense. Closing the show is the final like on my list. This is a team that when you give them a lead late and you allow them to turn the dogs loose, no DeMarcus Ware. He got injured, and we'll talk about that. Early second half, he goes down. And Von Miller said, I got it. Don't worry. I'll take this over myself. 3 sacks for Von Miller. He's also on the likes list in this football game. He's part of this defense that is just so vaunted and so vicious and nasty. And he's the guy that is the leader of this group. What he does up front impacts the rest of this defense. And his sack wrapped this ball game up. It was very reminiscent of the Super Bowl, taking the football from Cam Newton. He took the football from Luck. It trickled on the carpet, scooped up by Shane Ray, scoop and score, game, set, match. A later 2-point conversion tacked on would make it 20-34, which ended up being the final score of this game. Broncos defense just too much in the second half, primarily in that fourth quarter with 2 big scores. Remember, Broncos win by 14, 2 defensive touchdowns by the Broncos in the fourth quarter to seal this game shut. So when the game was on the line, that's what good defenses do. They put the game out of reach and put it to sleep. And they put this game to bed and to rest with the defense on the football field. Let's go to the dislikes for the second half. We go back to the Indianapolis Colts. And it's the Colts defense. To me, no. It's the pick six to Aqib Talib and then the fumble later on. The 2 turnovers essentially is, I talked about this defense and how good they were. They deserved to be on the likes list, and they were, and I mentioned them already. The 2 turnovers in the second half are my only dislikes. This defense played their heart out, got the stop late in the game, forced a field goal. They did everything they could do. The offense let them down in this game, and really it was that offensive line. I talked about the offensive line really having some issues and struggling. In my first half dislikes, you could go ahead and throw that in the second half dislikes as well. Andrew Luck was flustered and pressured all day. At one point, Andrew Luck, and this was after the first drive of the second half in which they went down the field, ate up 7 minutes of the clock on a 13-play drive and got into the end zone to tie the game up at 13. Andrew Luck, after that drive, was 7 of 20. At one point, he was 9 of 24 in this football game. They struggled up front. A lot of those, him running for his life, having to throw the football away, a couple of drops, a couple of errant passes out there, but at the end of the day, he was under duress the entire game. And his numbers reflected that of a guy who was under duress this entire game. And the turnovers, to me, are reflective of him being under duress. The Aqib Talib pick, he's throwing off his back foot because there's pressure in his face, and he doesn't get enough on it, and it's picked off and taken to the crib. The sack to seal the game up, you're down 6 with a chance to win with a touchdown, no timeouts. And first play, out of the gate, Joe Wright has help. They use Allen to chip, essentially, and slow up Von Miller. He still finds a way to get around Joe Wright. And or actually, that was the last sack of the game to end it, where they used Dwayne Allen to essentially block first and then go out on the route and give a little bit of help to Wright. And you can't really be mad at him there because Andrew Luck stepped up in the pocket on that last sack, but the one for the fumble, he just beat him around the edge. He widened his stance, gave himself a little bit more room, and just beat him around the edge. And I don't know what you do there. I mean, Von Miller is that dude, and he showed it again in this ball game. The pick six to Aqib Talib, the fumble, scoop and score by Shane Ray. That's your difference in the game. 2 fourth quarter turnovers by this Colts offense is your difference in this ball game. When you lose by 14, that's 2 touchdowns, that's 14 points. So, I mean, that's the difference between winning and losing in this game. Making mistakes in crucial situations. Colts did that. They lose this ball game. You go to the Broncos' dislikes in this football game. DeMarcus Ware injury. Injured his elbow, did not return. He ran into Von Miller. They had a meeting at the quarterback, and this one proved to be costly as Ware crashed into Miller, hurting his elbow, did not return in this game. He's already a guy that deals with back issues and a myriad of issues. Now add this to the laundry list of issues that he has with now an elbow that he'll probably be nursing for quite some time. Settling for field goals is my final dislike for the Broncos. They moved the football effectively in this game. I thought they settled for too many field goals, which kept the Indianapolis Colts in this ball game. Give some credit to the Colts defense, as I've done already, but you got to find a way to get in the end zone. They didn't do that enough on this evening, and it almost cost them in this ball game. Can't settle for field goals, but with this defense, just getting points usually is enough. Just get something. This defense will make it count and make it stand up. So you got to kick 3 field goals, which they did early in the game, which had this lead at 13-16 at one point. 1 touchdown, 3 field goals. They were able to get some defensive touchdowns to even things out, but make no mistake about it, they need to find a way. 4 field goals not going to win you a bunch of games. If you eliminate those Colts turnovers that ended up in touchdowns, and you're talking about 4 field goals, that's not enough to win you football games. Going to have to find ways to convert some of these possessions into touchdowns, not field goals. But that's the game for me in a nutshell. Broncos go out, get it done at home. The defense, we've seen them win them 2 games to start this season. They're going to need more help from this offense, but right now the defense playing lights out football as we all expected. And so this is going to be a team to reckon with. And with Trevor Siemian, I thought he actually played another good football game. Could have easily have put him on the likes list, but I didn't because I want to see this offense get into the end zone more, and they didn't in this game. But Trevor Siemian, I thought he played well yet again. 22 of 33, 2 and some change. 1 interception. We talked about the Darius Butler interception that would have been a touchdown if he didn't have the hamstring injury. You got to find ways to create some more offense if you're Denver, but Siemian looks good, and if he continues to play this way, they're going to have a chance in every single ball game that they play. Banana in the tailpipe for me, the Colts defense. I'm not sold that this is what they're going to be moving forward. I saw them last week. They looked nothing like this last week, and with the injuries in that secondary, I can't imagine them continuing to look this way. They look good today. I don't expect them to look as good moving forward. I got to see more. That's my banana in the tailpipe for the Colts. For the Broncos, the defensive turnovers and defensive scores, those are great, but you're not going to get those every week. But this is a defense that we saw generate these last season. So I'm not going to go as far as to say that that's a banana in the tailpipe per se, but leaning on the defense as heavily, forcing the defense to have to make touchdowns because the offense can't. That's a banana in the tailpipe for me. I'm not sure you're going to be able to win this season with 4 field goals and having the defense chime in and chip in with 2 touchdowns on the defensive side of football. You can't live like that. You're not going to win most Sundays with 2 defensive touchdowns. You're not going to get those most Sundays. Going to have to find ways to not settle for field goals if you're the Denver Broncos. My banana in the tailpipe is them settling for field goals. They're going to have to find a way to get in the end zone. I expect them to get into the end zone moving forward. 4 field goals and 2 defensive touchdowns and only 1 touchdown scored by this offense, not going to be enough. If you're relying on the defense to do this every week, you're relying on some false optimism if you're the Denver Broncos. Let's get to some of your comments. I see a lot of your comments here in the discussion box, so let's get to some of that. Let's see. Enrique Valencia says, the injury bug has blessed my team the past 4 years. Colts are always among the top 3 most injured teams. Yeah, man, I feel bad for you guys because the injury reaper has had no mercy on your team this season. And so it's been rough. It's really been rough. And again, that's why you got to give credit to this Colts defense, because with all those injuries, to be in this football game and have a shot, it just speaks volumes to them finding a way to get guys on the field, get them prepared, and get them in there and have them play some solid football. Gary Schopel says, I see a lot of Alex Smith and Trevor Siemian. What do you think? Also seems like the O-line is playing with more nastiness. The offensive line for the Denver Broncos, without a doubt, playing out of their mind right now. They're opening up some gaping holes for the running backs. They're giving Trevor Siemian some time. I love what this Broncos offensive line is doing. As far as Siemian being Alex Smith, I think he can drive the football down the field a little bit more, but than Alex Smith. I don't think Alex Smith is lacking that ability to do it. I just don't think Alex Smith does that enough. He can. We saw it last week against San Diego. He can push the football down the field when he needs to. He just doesn't do it enough. But Siemian looks like a guy that can do that, and I expect him to do that as he gets more and more comfortable. I think he's a guy that you can push the football down the field with and do a little bit more. But in terms of the Alex Smith comp, I can see that because of the mobility. I think Siemian is a lot more athletic than people are giving him credit for. He does a really good job of accuracy, the short to intermediate game. But I think the difference between him and Alex Smith is he's got the potential to push it down the field more so than Alex Smith does and more accurately than Alex Smith does. And I think that's something you'll see come with his game over time. Right now, they're just looking for him to manage the game, not turn it over, take what the defense is giving him. He's making some stick throws in there too, man. So I really think that as he continues to get comfortable, develops a rapport with the guys around him, he's going to be a threat to push the football down the field. Enrique Valencia says, Louie, can you play cornerback? Colts might call you up. Actually, I doubled as a corner in high school, but no. I'm a receiver by trade. I'm not a cornerback. Would have loved to have thrown my name in the hat, but I'm about to pass up on this one. And so that's going to do it, man. Let me check Twitter. I'm pretty sure there's nothing there because, like I say all the time, there's usually nothing on Twitter from you guys as far as tweets, and I don't see anything there. I'm going to check my mentions just to make sure that I didn't miss anything, and there isn't. So that'll do it for Colts and Broncos. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the Lab Room. Thank you for joining me on Lockdown Coverage. Much more to come. Make sure you join me for the conclusion of the Sunday night game right after Sunday Night Football overtime. Got a dandy on Sunday night. Packers at the Vikings, opening up a new stadium. Sam Bradford getting the start. First ever start as a Viking. Should be some great football. NFC North family business. For myself, Louie T, thank you for all of you guys out there joining me and chiming in. I will see you guys later. Lockdown Coverage. Some more of that coming your way down the pipeline as we break down every single matchup in Week 2 of the National Football League. We're changing the game one live feed at a time. I will see you next time. Have a good one. Colts fall at Denver 34-20.